us too. And so there's like, if you, in your mind's eye, do you have like a favorite tree from your childhood, like a special tree in your yard, or maybe there's a special tree here, or a group of trees here near your home on the lake? They're just so iconic here for the Adirondacks anyway, but people are drawn to them and people have revered them all through millennia for many reasons, but a lot of, spiritual reasons. So they are the keystone to the web of life. And they give us the air that we breathe, they clean the air, they clean our water, they make the air that we breathe. And without them, there just would be no life on earth at all. There's a lot of science about that, and I did a science geek myself, even though I'm tramping around in the woods all the time, and a confessed tree hugger. But lately the science is really explaining so much about what the trees actually do in their normal functions that I think you're deep diving into that as well. So tonight I'll just talk a little bit about how the trees do all these wonderful things for us. And I gave you a resource list, a handout, so I want to just share with you some of the books and things that you can use for further reading and identification and just favorites. And there's a couple of videos in there too that are short about how trees clean the air and how trees clean our water, and which are fun, but I didn't want to take up the whole time watching videos, and really I ended up banging the whole PowerPoint. I spent hours on, frustrated, and went out for a walk and came back with a whole bunch of real trees, and that's what I mean, and we can spend some time going over and looking at the trees that you're liking to do. So work really, and well, just a few of the ID books and things that I use, and that are my favorites. The Audubon Field Guide is a really good basic one and has wonderful pictures. So it's easy to identify the trees using that one. I didn't put that one, but another one that I really love is this one called the Tree Identification Book. And it's all photos, but it's together with photos of all the leaves of the trees. Then it has a whole section on the flowers, cones, bark. So if you only see like in the winter time, you see the leaves, you could still identify everything, fruit, nuts, everything, and you can find out where it comes from. I don't know what the trees are, the plants are. This is for it's more than just our area. Bar covers, I think it might be by mostly the east. Yeah, it should say that, but I'm not sure, but I find it incredibly useful. And this one is a lovely book. The Arboretum of America, the philosophy of the forest. And this one has beautiful photos, but like history, organic care, the medicine from the trees, the bioplan, how they affect the ecology, and it's really like up to date now, like what their threats are and how they are interacting with us. It's really beautiful. That's a favorite coffee table type. And then a really fun one is this called the Eclectic Guide to Trees. And that is east of the Rockies. So it's all a program, but it's with fun history facts and historical uses and tests and identification. But it's really, it's great. I love it. I go to this one, and then this one is the, it's American Trees by Rutherford Platt. I picked this up in the store, published in the 1940s, I found. And one of the loveliest, the field guide written earlier in those days. Then you can read it like a novel. It's really beautiful. And it's just a windbreak of the American town. But I just want to read it to you as part of the little paragraph here in the introduction about the town, because it will just give you a flavor for it. You can learn about the trees, but just it really gives a better sense. And he says, the American which is America's most vivid tree. Here's a superb diagram of the way trees fluid fountain. Air and water united by light, rushing upward out of the dark earth, drawing out branches like a skyrocket, sparkling with green leaves against the sky. The most characteristic form of the American elm is that of a column of water mounting with tremendous force. At about 1/3 of its height, the column splits into several branches that arch outward gradually as they mount, until at the crest they dome upward as the thrust is lost to gravity and then pour earthward at the point where the spray vanishes. When man erects the fine fountain at great expense, people come to wonder at it. Nature has distributed these elegant tree fountains all over the eastern half of the United States, and people have not been willing to visit either, because elm, purely for its beauty, has been planted along the streets and around the squares of towns more than any other tree. It is the keynote of many New England villages, the tall, steep curves of the branches meeting high above the street as over the nave of a cathedral. And so that's pretty descriptive for an ID book. Anyway, it's a great book, and it's got really, really wonderful pictures and drawings, and he has a really, anyways, he's just got a way with the words, and he has a whole section up here about the buds, the tree buds. So in the springtime, you can identify them by the buds, but they're so incredible, like interesting little things. Like there's even like a face. It's just like so interesting to go out all times of the year. It's like you don't have to just be in the middle of the summer and have a release. I recommend that. And then and the last one I have to show you here is this book is The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wallenberg. And this was pretty, it was a New York Times bestseller. It was just written a couple of years ago. And this is about what they feel and how they communicate. So this is a great book on explaining the way the trees can communicate, and in more, I don't want to say layman terms, but in terms that are more easily understood than the other book that I recommend is on the tree communication and the Wood Wide Web, if you've heard of it. It's fun. Yeah, it's that book is called Finding the Mother Tree. And it's really awesome that Dr. Suzanne Simard is a researcher in British Columbia, and she actually worked for a logging company And they would do these big clear cuts. And then part of her job was to help figure out what they wanted to do with replant these big clear cuts with faster growing trees for, increase their profit. They wanted to replant, but they wanted these trees to grow quickly and then monocultures, just one kind of tree at a time. And part was researching like ways to do that and how to get things going faster and all of that. And she kept noticing that the trees were not doing. They weren't growing faster, they'd get hit with diseases, they wouldn't recover from droughts and these replanting projects were not doing it well at all. When she went back to her research and she would study it, she ended up studying that the trees actually send signals, they share nutrients. And in this relationship with the mycelium, which is the mushroom under the earth. And without the mushroom, that's what they're calling the wood wide web. It's the mushroom mycelium that connects all life under the soil.
But the trees don't communicate like tree to tree. They have to have the mycelium as an intermediary.
Some of it is tree to tree, some of it is, and they communicate in other ways too, even above ground, by putting off pheromones and things like that. But this underground thing is the connection. Well, we'll see about it in a minute, because I do have a short video on that for you to see, but all three of those videos are in the research, so you can look at those. And also the Suzanne Simard that did all that research and wrote Finding the Mother Tree. There's a great TED talk on your resource list of her, and she explains the whole story in a really cool way and shows pictures of her results. So I gave that to you as well. Too much to share tonight and too complicated, but yeah, so maybe we can, Abby, maybe we can show that short video on the tree communication.
Just take a second.
Yeah, it'll take a minute to do one up. Yeah, that's okay. So I can just read. Maybe you can turn the lights on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like solitary individuals, but the ground beneath our feet tells a different story. Trees are secretly talking, trading, and waging war on one another. They do this using a network of fungi that grows around inside their roots. The fungi provide trees with nutrients, and in return they receive sugars. But scientists have found this connection runs far deeper than first thought. By plugging into the fungal network, trees can share resources with each other. The system has been nicknamed Wood Wide Web. It's thought that older trees, fondly known as almond trees, use this fungal network to supply shaded seedlings with sugars, giving them a better chance of survival. Those trees that are sick or dying may dump those into the network, which might then be used by healthier neighbours. Plants also use fungi to send messages to one another. If they're attacked, they can release chemical signals from their roots to raise their defences. But like our internet, the Wood Wide Web has its dark side too. Some orchids hack the system to steal resources from nearby trees, and other species, like the black walnut, spread toxic chemicals through the network to sabotage their rivals. On the real cybercrime aside, scientists are still debating what it's a thriving community between individuals. In your next video, swapping information and food for your feet.
Well, that's just a tiny piece of it, and so I really suggest that other head talk video when you have time, it's about 20 minutes long. And we go into a lot more detail, but those mother trees that we spoke of, they also call them pub trees, and those trees yeah.
There we go.
Well, those hemp trees, they can, when they're, taking in the nutrients from the leaf in the sun and converting it to their food and sugars and carbon that they use, the carbon is used to actually build the flesh of the tree and the roots, and it goes into the soil. Well, we need carbon to create the physical body. So when the trees take in CO2, carbon dioxide from the air, they process it and they take the carbon and the oxygen apart, and they use the carbon to build their bodies. And then they keep sending it down, and if they have any left over that they're not using, they dump it down into this network. And if they have, there are seedlings of the same species around, they can be connected by the mycelium, and they can actually send their excess carbon and nutrients to their own species. And so they're taking care of their young and their families. They can also, some mycelium and some trees are in partnerships together. And she did this cool study where so when they were doing those monoculture, they were putting in this, I think it was red spruce, I'm not positive what it was, but that was the idea that that's growing these spruce trees, and then they were diseased and dying. And she found out she was studying diverse forests and wondering why they were better. And so she found that when they grow birch trees and these spruce trees that grow together, they actually help each other. And so in the summertime, the birch trees have more leaves than these spruce trees. And so they collect a lot more carbon than they actually need. And so they actually dump it down and send it to the fir trees. And then in the winter, when the birch trees don't have any leaves and they can't produce any more carbon, the fir trees are still cooking along. And so they send some to the birch trees. And the way they figured it out was just amazing, but it was really cool because the trees in a diverse forest, they're committed to the community and the survival and the health and the thriving of all the community. The animals, the birds, they're all interconnected. And by making the air that we breathe, we couldn't live without them. And they don't live really, I mean, we help them breathe too, because we're expelling the carbon dioxide that we don't need, and we're taking in the oxygen that we do, and they're doing the opposite. They put the oxygen back in the air and they're taking the carbon dioxide in, so we can just breathe back and forth. It's just really superb. They also clean the air, all those particulates from that smoke that we saw, and air pollution. That's why they like to plant trees in cities, because it helps with the pollution, because the leaves actually absorb those in certain particles and air pollution. The leaves will take it in, the tree processes it, takes what it needs, and then breaks it down into its organic compounds and then puts it back in the earth. And so they're cleaning that, and even smoke particles from fires, they'll stick to the leaves, they'll stick to the twigs and the bark, which has bacteria on it that dissolves it and takes it away. So they're really important for our air, our water, and just all of life. So I'd like to take a little more time here. I just decided, instead of watching the screen and all of that, I went out and picked all these tree leaves, and so I thought I could just share with you about the trees that are growing here, that you're likely to see, and that you can get to know. And then yeah, and then I can give you a little more information on how connecting with me if you want to, and how that sound okay, or to pass and stuff around. So, just pick one to start. This is the northern white cedar. And the cedar tree, or also called arborvitae. You heard them call that, maybe some landscaping, but they're native here. And the name arborvitae came from when the explorer Cartier was exploring the St. Lawrence River, and his ship got stranded in the ice in the winter, and they couldn't get out. And so they spent the winter in St. Lawrence, frozen in, and they soon their food supplies. And so the native people were doing some hunting and doing some fishing, but the men were dying of scurvy, which was the lack of vitamin C. They had no fresh fruits and vegetables or anything like that. And so the Indians offered to help them out, because they said that shouldn't be happening. Here's what we do. And they brought them cedar tips and showed them how to make tea out of it. And it saved their lives. And so Cartier took the seeds from the cedar tree when he returned to France and brought them to the king to plant, and then that's when they named it arborvitae, because it's the tree of life. And that's the first North American, the first tree from the Americas to be planted in Europe. And so that's the history. But also, if you have a bush of cedars, you see those, and on the bottom, like 5 feet, get eaten by the deer. They're doing it in the winter, because that's where the nutrients are. They get eat. And that's what they're liking in their diet. So it's the tree of life, and it's deer food. So I can pass these around if you guys. So I think it's the red cedar. They look more like juniper. Yeah.
The trees that we see, the big cedar tree, that's.
Yeah. And northern white cedars. Right. And this is the balsam fir. This is our Christmas tree. And they are also one of the iconic trees of the Adirondack. When the tuberculosis was really scouring the country, and people would come to Adirondack in particular to take the balsam the over Salmon Lake. And people would come from the city where it was all polluted and they didn't have fresh air. And they would keep to the sanitarium because of the air that they could breathe. And it was good enough everywhere that it was cleansing, but it is. It's aromatic. Then that you, you go ahead and just, it's just like, that's your Christmas tree, what are the walls and pillows then? Right. But they would take people up these sanatoriums and they would quite ill, they'd sit them on the porches, come get them all in blankets, but out in the fresh air to breathe that in the room and really cure them. There's a great photo I have, of lean-to in the Adirondacks from one of these places, and it was a lean-to in the forest, and they had taken balsam boughs, because they're soft, they're not prickly and all that. Balsam boughs and completely filled up the base of it to like a big thick mattress, and then these folks are in there with. They're going to be sleeping, but they're laying down and they're a little bit hot, but they're wrapping blankets and pillows and everything, but on this huge balsam mattress out in the balsam forest. And they have all kinds of, that's what cured people. It's because the aromatics in the balsam, they're antifungal, they're antibacterial, and we know all this now. They just, a lot of it they learn from Native people, and it's an incredibly wonderful tree to have. And just the smell itself just gets me all the time. And you just in the winter time, little bicycles like hang on it, like after a storm or something, and it's just like get that bicycle and yes, it's good nervousness, but it's very refreshing. Really cool. The cones on the balsam tree, if you're not quite sure, spruces look kind of similar, but in their cones. The cones on the ball go stand up on the branches. And you can think of it like in old days, they used to put candles on the Christmas trees or you get the little clip on one. So that's what you think of. So it's like blossoms have the cones that stand up instead of. And well, I was gonna say, oh, thank you, yeah. I was gonna say, and this is my favorite stuff, so I can go on. But this is not the real favorite, as my granddaughter would say. This is the white pine. These are big, tallest pines if you look on the mountains, and if you see a few the tallest trees that you see sticking up, it's most likely the white pines. They grow really quickly. They grow about a foot every year. I mean, 1 to 4 feet a year. And they grow, the branches grow in smaller one, you can tell. They grow in whorls. So like they'll go up and then it has about 8 branches that come out all from the same place. And then the next year it's going to shoot up. And then the next year it branches out and goes up. So you can count how old the tree is by how many steps of those. And usually the first 3 years, it doesn't send out branches. It's just trying to get up when they're super tiny. So you add 3, and then from then on, it's like every time you see the whorl branches, that's how old it is. They have, they're like little brushes. These are our longest needles here in this part of the country. And the needles are in little bundles of 5. So there's 5 needles in a bundle, and you can remember that it's a white pine because WHITE, 5 letters, and it's white, and it's, that's.
What do you call it?
I do not know.
Opposed to red where it has a tree, right?
Yeah, 3, you know, I always learned that it was red as garden tree, but I was just looking at it tonight and it said, it has 2. So, yeah, that's what I said. Because I knew I don't know, but those have the 5 and it's easy to tell because they have a really. And the one time where harvested from this area, all over the east, but mostly in New England, early on, because they would grow like up to 200 feet tall. They grow very straight, and they and like the 4 feet wide. And they would harvest those and send them back to England and France for, they made the ship's mast out of them. They were the strongest and the straightest and the tallest hardest wood for ship mast. And most of them that were hard were sent away. So, they were, taken from here. And so now you don't see them that big. The older houses might have wide plank floors. My house, former house in Vermont, was a little farmhouse and planning boards, the living, or you know, this size. Yeah, and they used them. Those were from the smaller ones. And so they would use them for the wood in the house and panels. It smelled good, it would warm, and it's nice and straight and easy to cut and work with. So, that's. And then we have,
Yeah.
oh, right, yeah, yeah. Thank you, because I was going to that. It's my favorite wintertime cold and flu cough formula. Selecting fresh. I could go out in the snow in the middle of the winter and cut a twig instead of half like that. And chop up the needles and the twig and boil it in some water. And it makes an utility, but it's the most powerful expectorant and cough relief. And because it's antibacterial and anti-infection, and it has respiratory action, clearing the lungs up, and it smells and tastes delicious. Next slide, please.
Tastes good.
It's really interesting, things that we think that they don't taste good, but once when you use them and it works, your mind will change what you think about it. So try it. I mean, you like the smell, and it tastes good and it feels good. When it starts to work, you go, right outside my door. And it's better than Paul's mental illness. Cool. Yeah, I mean, all of these, there's medicinal value to them. That's the move I made with it. So I'm going for the herbal medicine and the ways to use native plants and things that we find all around us to heal and be healthy, and then I'm going all together. This is a hemp. This is their evergreen, and this is one of my other things. But they're so graceful, and they're really big trees, but they have the smallest needles and they have the smallest little pine cones. giant tree, and they're so feathery and, they were used in this area, there was a huge, harvesting of all them that we could get their hands on. They used some of the Holland onions and they would pile them, cut them down, and strip all the bark off. And the bark would be shipped out to all the tanneries, because that's what they used for tanning, was hemlock bark. And so like down in West Walden, they can still see, and the logs, peeled logs, left in the wood, because they're not good for lumber. They're very knotty and gnarly, so they don't go clear. They're hard to split and use that way. And so, and same thing with branches, they just have too many knots and things to be used that way. So that the logs themselves, the peeled logs, were just less than a big thing. And because of the resins and things that they have in those, they don't really run very quickly. And so they can still try, they can still protect something around the forest where they would do those areas. And some of them, they would just dump them into the lake or whatever to get rid of them, and they would sink to the bottom and be able to, I just said live that, but really great magazine. Gives you a really fair overview, you know, a lot about the logging and lumber industry, but also conservation and all forest. If you're pulling out some of the sunken logs from the logging industry, and they're preserved. And they're using them, and they still have their stamps on the end to identify who's logged everywhere. And there's luthiers that are using that wood to make violins and mandolins and guitars. They say it's an amazing river in the wood because of the way it was preserved. Big sturgeons of that and quite a busy anyway, so hemlock was one of those, and hemlock is alloy treated with mushroom extract, and the mushrooms are so tied to the trees, as you saw in the video, underground, but one of the mushrooms that I use is the reishi mushroom, and it's also called a varnish shelf mushroom. And it only grows on dead hemlock trees. So stumps, and like if the land was logged, my former home in Vermont was logged about 20 years before I moved there. And I would find lots of reishi mushrooms growing on those stumps. And where my family's house is in Forest Bay in Hague, there's folks at the end of the road, and the name of their cottage is called Hemlock Hollow, because it's all in the big, there's all hemlocks all around it. But there's also some dead ones and a few stumps. And they call them every year, the mushrooms are here. Just went up last week, and so yeah,
The big, the big giant thing.
yeah, I think that's very bad. But there's a lot of shelf mushrooms. So, but identifying those is pretty easy with my ebook, and the thing is, it's a dead end. So they don't put anything else. Yeah. So here's our headline. And then the oak trees. A wonderful oaks. I have 2 oaks here. So something that happened, so this is, I'll show you what they are first, and then we'll say a couple of things. This is a white oak. I don't know why it's white. know what the difference is. If you look at the low on these leaves, they're rounded. Okay, they're like bigger. That's why compared to a black one, which see they're all pointed. It's a point. And black oak comes from like. The black oak also has a different shape to its leaf. It's more narrow at the bottom and kind of goes out on either side of it, and they can get really actually cheap. Which isn't surprising. So the oak trees, let me put this little, let me put that little, just so people know which one it is, but that's the difference in those. So, the last 2 years with those, Cochineal caterpillars, their favorite food was the oak trees. And, I was just like devastated because on our property in Hague, there's this huge old oak tree. And that was the first thing I noticed about the caterpillars. I didn't see them. I didn't be foliated and heartsick about this tree because it's so old. And I thought it was gone. And then sure enough, later in the summer, it leaked out again. And so how they could do this. Then the next year, the same thing, and I could not believe it that they survived again. So, with this whole thing about tree communication, it really got me thinking. And I was wondering, I talked to Sarah about this last. We were talking about this class because the remedy, or supposedly for natural control for those such or caterpillars was the fungicide, the bacterial BT. And so that's organic, it's naturally occurring, and you can get that in a powder form and spray it and you put it on your broccoli and broccoli. Yeah, to get rid of the cabbage worms that work up in your garden, and I've used that before. And so then they're saying it also work for these caterpillars, and it's naturally occurring. And I'm like, why do you have to spray it? Get that. So the cycle of those caterpillars is like 2 to 3 years. And then naturally, this BT erupts more, there's more of it or something, and it just naturally stops the cycle and kills them. And then for like 15 to 20 years before they can show up again. And so this was the explanation, and I even heard a whole interview on NPR not too long ago from the Forest Service month, who were talking about how that will work, and saying that in the drier part of the summer, that's when the caterpillars go at it, and then if we get a good period of rain, that this fungicide erupts or something and is more than present. It was very vague. He didn't say how it happened, he just said it does, right? And then I'm thinking about this communication thing because the plants really do send out messages. And when we think about communication, it's not like it's happening as fast as we talk. It's a long time before the message gets to him. It's going like to respond because you think evolutionary, right? Things don't happen overnight. And I really think that one of the trees somehow that signals, okay, we need more. Of it. Go ahead, let's go. I don't be really into that. Right. And they just didn't know how to do it. And, you know, that other video, I love it. Actually, they did nothing here that they do. But it's still pretty amazing. So I think that they,
So are they not here yet, or not coming this year?
I mean, they are by me, so you probably won't see them for many years. And then, they cycle, and they find they, it's just more of them. 2 days ago, there was the biggest one I've ever seen. It was like as big as my finger on my porch. One. But I didn't know more eggs this year. I wasn't taking them. Yeah, and we didn't stay. They just like.
We could hear them chewing. We could hear them chewing.
Yeah, chewing, and it was poop coming out. And I'm like, come on, is that something breathing?
But it really was a very narrow band that it affected because friends north of us were affected. South of us. It was definitely right.
My family has big. Bad, we actually bought 5 hemlock trees. Because they did go to those 2, and
We lost a bunch of very large birch.
so my family's favorite tree in the yard. And it was a huge old hemlock, and the roots are all over the end, and the wall gloss on it, and that's how we get to the dump. We all love our path, this tree, and that did not survive because unlike the oak trees that could send out new leaves, the hemlock and only did not. So it was completely defoliated 1 year, not completely, mostly, and then the following year they finished it off, and it they cannot come back, and there's 5 smaller ones along the beach. And that's where the biggest infestation was, and there's oak trees there too, and a maple, and some birches, and everybody else did okay. And those hemlocks just could not do it, so, yeah. Little pests that come in, like with the hemlock, so, hemlock woolly adelgid.
Dalgid, yeah.
I always think that wrong.
You can just say HWA. It's a bit easier.
Oh, I always say it because. Anyway, but that, that was coming in, it's really important because that we monitor them, because that's a invasive, non-native invasive. So these trees don't have any defenses in their lineage to deal with it, and so that's why it's so devastating. So the work that the land conservancy is doing here, and teaching people, I don't know if any of you come to the classes that they're teaching on, it's really easy to monitor the trees on your property, and that's the way to control it, because they have control. They have ways to treat the tree before it spreads to everything else. So that kind of work is super important, and that's what the land conservancy is doing here with those. And with other things like these punchy ones they cheat in, and they kind of search, and so yeah. The hemlock. Yeah, it's hemlock woolly adelgid.
Yeah. And you can only
Or
really,
adelgid.
yeah.
You can only really find it in the spring because they're tiny little guys. But online, you can find good identification things for your eggs and everything.
So all of these trees can get cut. That's my point. And but some of them are newly introduced and they haven't had time to develop this communication thing. So it's important to know what's going on. So to get out of the movement. Oh, the other thing with those oaks, there was oh, it's kind of cool, but you see the tip of it here has this gradual ground. These were new leaves in the spring. What happened I live year round. Over towards Eagle Lake, from elevation up there. And this spring, we had that period of like 10 days, where it was really warm. And the trees all started to leaf out early, and which the oaks did. And then we had like a week where it got cold, and there were like 3 days in a row where it got in the 20s at night. And so it wasn't just the frost, it was the heat. And all the oak trees by me, all of the leaves died. They would just turn brown and crispy on the beeches and then the oaks. Both of them, they were the ones that sent out their leaves early and they killed them. And I was like, they just had 2 years of sponging on caterpillars. And now this, and I thought, all right, they got to do it now. That has to do it. And for a long time, all the other trees, the leaves came out. I was just sick about it. I had pictures where it's like the canopy was full of leaves and then all these dead leaves. And but sure enough, they all leaf back out again. They still have some of the dead leaves on the ends of it, but they all leaf back out. It's so resilient. It's so resilient. That's a lesson for us. We can take those lessons and use them and see they just keep, they help each other through those communications, and they're all about the survival of the diversity of the whole forest, because it's all dependent on each other in there. And Thich Nhat Hanh has, he doesn't call it interconnectedness between us and nature, he calls it interbeing, because we're all part of everything. We breathe the same air, we're breathing the same air our ancestors. And it's just going round and round, and the trees are clean, and cycling. It's just amazing to think about what they're doing. And we just have two more, just quick. So our maple trees, we know what we get from them, that give us just clear up and good wood and everything. And this is the peach. And I love these two. I love the in the winter, they hold on to their leaves. And they're coppery. Where's the little look? Oh, here it was. Just a little mark, but this is the color, and they're just like this beautiful, they're just like little candles all over the trees in the winter, and even now some of them still hold on to some of them. And when the wind blows, they blow, so the little bird, it's just like they're just beautiful. So, in the winter time, like I would shoot tracks from the day before, the windy night. Go out the next day and they're like right in my footprints. And the last one I'm going to share that was no, those white birches. I didn't have the branch because they're all up on it. So white birch, but the pink birches were used for native people made canoes out. The bark is waterproof and it's flexible. So they could use it for that, and they also use it to make containers for storage and for cooking. They could make a container and fill it with water, and then they would put it over the fire, and they would put hot stone in it, and it would just boil up, and it wouldn't catch on fire. Whereas the bark by itself is one of the best fire starters. But when it's all contained, you have to catch on the edge to do that. So this is a basket I made out of birch bark. Actually, it's 21 years ago. But I took a workshop in making birch bark basket. And it's folded on the corners, and so you think that you have to soak it to get the, but it's waterproof. That doesn't work. And the way to get it close enough to fold is you have to hold it over a fire. And it gets so hot that the resin like melt inside, and then quickly fold it in plant it, and then to the next time, you have to do it again. But did it over the stove like that, and formed it, and then it's all healthy. This is bad traditional way. The old stone with so we went out and collected the roots from the spruce tree, and they don't grow anything, even to get the bark. They knew ways to collect these things without killing the trees. So those spruce roots, they find a spruce tree, and the roots go way out, and of course they're like easily dig in a little bit, and you see them, and they're on the surface, and you just pull them up, and you go back, about 10 feet or so, and then you can cut them, and for the tree, and then I have a big plastic garbage can full of water, and all these coils of spruce roots soaking in it until the bark rotted on. Then take it out and wipe the bark off, and then you have to split the root in order to use them to get them to a size you can use. And you do that with your fingers, nails, and you start and and you just start to pull it apart. It just naturally just splits down the middle. And so you're soaking and peeling, splitting, and got coils and coils on it. And so your basket, soak the root in water because they're made to absorb water, and then they'll get soft again, and you can sew them into your basket and then hold them together. But all the materials are made without killing the tree, even harvesting the birch bark. When people use a lot of birch bark for decorative purposes on furniture, all that around that styling. And if you're clearing the land or you're felling the tree, like that is the birch bark. But it's important to do it in the springtime and sap, because in the winter when the sap is down, the bark is like stuck right into the tree. So in the springtime, you can peel. You can't. If you girdle the tree and peel the bark off, you'll kill the tree. But if you know of somebody that has to clear some land, or if you know a logger like I did, then when they're clearing, they can let you know, and when they cut the tree down, then you peel the bark off. So that's the safe way to do it for the trees. Or I've also done it where you find a birch tree that's down and it's rotten. You ever see the whole inside is like peat moss? The whole inside has rotted away, and the bark is still, it's still not rotten because of all the. Very cool. So, yeah, so that most of what I want to share with you, that part, I think I'd like to have one more thing, or just share and close it before. Then we can have a little Q&A if you want, and then I can tell you about how you can be in touch with me and have a book and stuff like that, but, and it's about trees. When I am among the trees, when I am among the trees, when I am among the trees, especially the willows and honey locusts, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such endless gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily I am so distant from the whole of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple. If you too have come into this world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine. So, I have, so I said to a couple of people, I make this mushroom extract. I make medicinal herbal preparations, and so I make the mushroom extract. I've been making it for about 30 years, and I learned how to make it at a conference in herbalism, and a class was being given on medicinal mushrooms. And I have been working with all the plants around me, but the medicinal mushrooms I had heard about, reishi, all Chinese medicine, ordered from China, and that's, you know, that whole medicinal paradigm, and which I knew nothing about. So that was one of the classes I took. I said, oh, I have to know about this. And when I went to the class, it was given by Kate Gilbay, who's amazing. She starts showing these mushrooms, and I'm like, these are the mushrooms. And I had them in my office on the bookshelf. And I'm like, they didn't know these were medicine. They were just chaga mushroom. I thought was where the tree got hit by lightning. It looks like charred wood, but it's a mushroom. So that got me into studying of the mushrooms. They were all like in that wood, and so I started making that extract. And but it wasn't until really it's only been the last like 5 or 6 years that I really started to put the connection that those mushrooms and those particular trees are connected, because they're all mushrooms that grow on trees, and they're all specific to a certain tree. And so when I teach people about looking for mushrooms and teaching about the edible mushrooms, it's really all about habit and time of year. You don't just, I mean, I love that. What's this? What's this? But with the mushroom tree connection, like the hemorrhoids, the reishi only grows on dead leaves. And the maitake, hen of the woods mushrooms, grows at the base of mostly older oaks. And some of them are dead and some of them are dying. They don't have to be dead. It's going down in the roots, and if it's a stump, they'll be burned down. The chaga mushroom only grows on birch trees, only. And so I was only on live birch trees. And I gave a class one time on the mushrooms, and a forester came, and he had missed the beginning of the class when I talked about the chaga mushrooms. So afterwards he came up and he was looking at everything. And this was after that I trees, and he goes, yeah, they're out there in the storm, and those chaga mushrooms came in and infested all those birch trees. And I was like, Because they only grow dry birch trees. And so birch trees is, Betulina abies, I think. Anyway, that's the Latin name. And so there's this compound, called betulin, which only appears in the birch trees that they're using for cancer treatments, especially in immune cells, immune treatment. And they come from the birch trees, but the chaga mushroom also has that in there. And the way that we know that the mycelium gets into the tree, it's coming up into the tree, and then the chaga mushrooms are growing out of places in the trees where they've been wounded. And that's why he thought they infested all those birch trees, because then it came in. And so what it does is it helps their immune system. It heals over where the wound was, and it's only on the live trees. If a birch tree dies, it falls down, the chaga mushroom is no good anymore. So you can only get a tree. And this guy thought that the chaga was killing the birch tree, but it's not, because the chaga mushroom only grows about 1/2 to 1 inch per year. And they found chaga mushrooms that are 4 and 5 feet long. They're like 50 years old, and they only grow on a live tree. Why would it kill its host, right? So they have this symbiotic relationship, it's not a parasitic relationship.
Do all birch trees have chaga?
No.
Is it just paper birch?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Actually, if you find it in New York, sometimes it can be gray birch, but not too, just not where I live. But so think about it, what's going on, who wants to go on the roof, and so these older, where the roots fall off or get knocked off in the storm, those are the ones that get chaga. And whereas a young tree hasn't had a chance to be wounded, except when I was in Vermont, there, on my road, the snow, somebody's driveway, it was dirt road, and the trees were right up against the road. And the neighbor's driveway was cut off, and the snow, I'm looking like this far off the ground, from a tiny birch tree about this big around, was a chaga growing, and then on closer inspection, it was kind of a snow cloud that you think that. And like a few years before, and here it was, just starting out, right in that spot. So it's yellow birch and white birch.
Is it a shelf mushroom or is it more?
No, it's like it looks like a big chunk of burnt wood. It's black and it's black. It's a hard rock, and there's other fungus that looks like similar to that, but there's nothing like it. And it only grows on the birch tree, and when they knock it off the tree, the center of it's all like a golden orangey, rusty color.
Like, I mean, obviously. How do you do that without endangering the birch?
You don't endanger the birch. You don't take the birch tree down. You can just take the trunk off. No, not right there. No. There is no sustainable harvest of chaga mushroom. No matter what anybody tries to tell you. Yes. The tree will be all right, and it might start growing some more, but an inch a year.
Yeah.
Right? You're not gonna live long enough. So, it's like, when I do use it, it's one of the major ones that I use, but it's part of, sparing, like one, like the little one, I never take, because how much are you gonna get out of that? People make tea, they do it. Really medicinally, herbalists use it to help people get on of coffee. Not put it in your coffee, it's good for your adrenals and all that stuff, so anyway, so I never take a small one because you can keep an eye on it, and wait till it gets bigger and then take it, but she had to get pretty big ones, and it'll last me, my maybe a couple of years. And you can make tea out of it if you buy it places, they sell it, and don't just use it once through your coffee maker. You boil it on the stove and you can use the same grounds over like 3-4 times. Have stuff for a whole week. And one use of it. Over and over and sparingly, and you don't take the tree down to do it. You just take it off the tree. And you want to make the chop of it and you want to work it. But yeah. It's like black coffee. And it doesn't have much flavor. So you can add flavor to it. I make chai tea with all those chai tea spices in it. It's amazing. So if you want, I'm going to send around a little email list if you want. I send out a flyer like 3 or 4 times a year with stuff that I make, and I have it all the time, but I have it on sale. And but if you want, just put a little note next to your name. If you want the chaga chai recipe, I'll send that to you. And then you can come up for that. And then, like I said, I sell the mushroom. And here is a few of the flyers from July, if you want to just see what I do with all of this stuff. And then if there's not enough, if you'd like another flyer, I can send that to you. And then the other thing is I used to write the nature news for the Hague Chronicle. It was a monthly thing, and I did it for 10 years or something. Anyway, I took the essays and self-published them into a little book. And so they're like little essays all about life around the lake and nature. And there's some stuff about the trees in here. Like dandelion wine. Anyway, these I sell them in the stores and they go for like $8, but here they're just $5. So I've got some here if you want that. So I think, are there any other questions? I know I've gone over. How do you use it? It's a half a teaspoon, 2 or 3 times a day, just under your tongue. Usually provide a drop of body. So it's a tincture, it's an alcohol extract. And it's really it's amazing for your immune system. And what it provides is all the building blocks and nutrients that your body needs to make the immune cells. So it's used, lots of folks undergoing cancer treatment, it's used particularly for the cancer. But just general immune, I take it every day, and so do my folks, and my folks are 93 and 94, and they both had COVID, and they didn't go to the hospital. And it really just gives your immune system what it needs to work. Excuse me. My extract is chaga, turkey tail, reishi, maitake, and shiitake. And the shiitake, that's the only one that doesn't go. So maybe get it from the anyway, that's what I have. Thank you. Reason to walk through the woods. It's not. The walking. Which is hit a lot of spots. One take, yeah, so it's all.
I think it might be at Wheelwalker. I'm not sure though.